So Blast is way stronger than what we initially thought. Actually, not only Blast, but also Empty Void, the leader of the Ninja Village. He has been buffed. He is way stronger than what he originally was. He's easily one of the strongest characters in the series right now, and we'll get into why that is, of course. So we're continuing the retcon of the Ninja Village arc. I went over all of this stuff in my previous video, what the retcon is, why it was changed, and what's going to happen essentially, and what's going on with those changes. So if you want to know what's going on with that, or you just need a refresher, please check out my previous chapter video. I'll have it linked in the top right or at the end of this video. So coming into this one, we're continuing the discussion between Flashy Flash Saitama and Blast at the Hero Association, and Flashy Flash just comes right out with it at Blast, and he's like, you know what, tell me about God that you've been fighting. That's what I initially came here to ask you about. And Blast is like, bro, if you're thinking about joining this fight, just forget about it. You would just die against God. And at this point, we have a rough idea of how strong you relatively have to be in order to fight against God, or even one of his top disciples, such as like Cosmic Fear Garo. And Flashy Flash is nowhere near that level. I mean, Flashy Flash himself even accepted death against Cosmic Fear Garo just standing before him. So obviously he would just get literally atomized by God just looking at him at this point. And Blast obviously knows that. But going further, Flashy Flash reestablishes the Ninja Village lore that we already knew, such as like the Ninja Village was a training facility for high-class assassins. It was located deep in the mountains, inaccessible to ordinary people because of a barrier put around it. We still don't know exactly what this barrier technically is, but it seems like Empty Void might be an Esper or some kind of Esper adjacent type being, so he could do barriers kind of like how Tatsumaki can or something. We're also getting the flashback of when Sonic and Flashy Flash were children in the Ninja Village, seeing Empty Void in his recovery capsule, as well as seeing the God Cube on display. And in this new continuity, Flashy Flash is quickly putting the pieces together here, which he really didn't before, where he just cuts to the chase again, and he's like, so we can assume that the Ninja Village leader Empty Void was granted power by God, and that in order to produce and ship first-class assassins to the village, he put the youngsters through this training in a way to produce efficient minions for God. So everything was just a front organization for God. And he's like, isn't that right, Blast? And like, they didn't talk about all this stuff before, but I'm glad that they're establishing this now, because Flashy Flash is for sure intelligent enough to put this stuff together. And I also like the way that he says a front organization for God, because, you know, as we talked about before, this is happening in multiple places simultaneously. Like the Monster Association, the first big villain organization that we were introduced to in this series, that was a front organization for God. Ninja Village is a front organization for God. Tsukuyomi, the Esper organization that is able to produce Espers, the same organization that had Tatsumaki as a child, that is a front organization for God. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'll just say the organization, you know, the robot guy, in my opinion, they are for sure a front organization for God. But again, Blast is like, look, I understand and I can sympathize, but I just can't accept your help. You're just gonna freaking die, dude. You can't manipulate the cosmos. That's like bare minimum to fight against God here. But then Blast reveals that, you know, that guy that you're talking about, that man, the leader of the Ninja Village, his name is actually Empty Void, and he was my former partner. But when we were searching for the cubes, he fell under God's control. Because, you know, when you touch the cube, you're able to communicate with God. If you're worthy, then you accept his power. If not, then you like turn to dust. And Blast is placing the blame on himself for this. Like, he feels as though he failed because he wasn't able to help Empty Void. And because of that, he essentially allowed Empty Void to become what he was and start the Ninja Village, which led to all the kids being victims to this. And then also all of the assassinations that took place because of the people coming from the village. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Fume. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong, so instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-winning device that does just that. Instead of electronics, fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, fume uses all natural delicious flavors. Your fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. Fume also has Base now, which was launched in January. It's a weighted stand to rest your fume on when it's not in use, with a magnet inside that keeps your fume attached. Guys, I'll be straight up. I particularly do not have a bad habit that I would use fume for. I mainly wanted to partner with Fume for you guys. That's because my demo is 18 to 34. And statistically, a lot of you probably have some bad habits. And you know what I mean. Some of you are really knee deep in those bad habits. And I would really like to help you guys turn those bad habits into good habits. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to use it personally. I mean, now that I have it, why wouldn't I? So this thing is genuinely refreshing. Like, it's so much more flavorful than you would think it would be. I tried the orange vanilla flavor and wow, it is just so good. It is a breath of fresh air. And trust me, I know stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories. And there's no reason that that can't be you. So join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com/Zhoniin or scan the QR code and use code Zhoniin to get 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use code Zhoniin to save an additional 10% off on your order today. Thanks, guys. And then Flashy Flash was like, so your partner was used as a pawn by the enemy and you let him get away? Blast is like, that's a harsh way to put it. Originally, he and I were equal in ability. And since he was given the power, he had a big advantage, but he gave him a serious wound that will take 15 years to recover from. So this has changed a lot because before this was not said. Before it seemed like Empty Void was not as strong as Blast, not even close. But now they were equals, and once he received God's power, he had an advantage. So Empty Void, like I said, shot way up on the power scale. If he is truly an equal to Blast, or even has somewhat of a slight advantage over him, then he is disaster level God. Before, we were putting him around above Dragon, which seemed accurate maybe, but no, he might straight up be God level at this point. I don't want to jump the gun, but man, he really might be that strong at this point, because we actually see him do something at the end of the chapter. But this is also why Empty Void had to go into that recovery capsule, because whatever Blast did to him, injure him All Might style or something. And Flashy Flash gives Blast more guff for allowing him to escape, and he's like, you know what, forget about it, I'll find out about God on my own, you stay out of it. And then Saitama chimes in and he's like, so what do you want to do about your partner? And before he can respond, we see that they're continuing to conduct the experiments on the martial artists turned monsters in the martial arts tournament back in season 2. So this was also happening in the previous continuity before the retcons. This is going to be like a big storyline going forward in the series for sure, and it's Blast and the Hero Association trying to figure out how to reverse monsterization, or at least for the most part, experimenting with the separation of monster cells, as they specifically say, because, you know, all of these individuals were humans originally. And speaking of that, Minako is like scared of seeing this. She's like, I was never a human to begin with, okay? So there's no point in doing that stuff to me, which is true. If you were born a monster, obviously it would be redundant. And it's interesting that Minako brings that up, because in the previous continuity before the retcons, Minako revealed that she was born from the flesh of Giro, like the monster puppet that Psychos made to control, to be like the covert leader of the Monster Association, so that she didn't have to appear as a sexy woman. And they haven't revealed that yet in this new continuity. So I wonder if they're waiting for that to happen, because like I've been saying for years, guys, there is something about Minako that cannot be trusted. Like on the surface, she believes that she is a good guy at this point, but I think something will happen that turns her evil, or turns her into a foil for the heroes, because she She bears the singular eye. That's like a dead giveaway for one's writing. But we see Hamukichi, like the bear monster martial artist guy, wanting to willingly continue this experimentation to reverse his monsterization because he feels bad for accepting the monster cells in front of all the kids in the dojo, and he can't go back there afterwards unless he's a human again. And it's promising for the Hero Association and the story, of course, because this shows that they'll eventually be able to break through and undo this monsterization, because there are a few characters that are monsters that were originally humans that need to have that process undone to them. Some haven't been revealed yet, but then some we know of with Empty Void, Blast's partner, which is why Blast is so close to this project. He's trying to bring Empty Void back to being a human. And it hasn't been revealed in this continuity yet, but in the previous, it was revealed that Empty Void has like this ability to open like this dimension that God is hiding inside of. They called it the Celestial Rock Cave. I don't know if they're going to change that, but that's probably going to come back in some way, maybe. Also, another interesting thing here, going back to Hamukichi willingly wanted to continue the experimentation. Sitch says that it's just as Silverfang stated in his report, the key to rescinding monsterization seems to be in their psychological state. This is a callback to the Monster Association arc. When Bang, Bomb, and Fubuki encountered Super S, she had like turned some random civilians into monsters with like her whip monster power stuff. And we saw that they eventually were able to undo the monsterization just from like not wanting to be monsters, essentially. Like as it says, their psychological state. And Bang witnessed that and saw promise for Garo to do the same thing to himself, because he was still on the verge of being a full-blown monster at that point. So I like that they're continuing that whole aspect, and that Bang actually did write that down and told the Hero Association about it. But then suddenly Blast senses Empty Void. Apparently he has woken up from his 15-year coma and he's attacking the Hero Association. And Blast activates one of his barrier event horizon singularity things and encapsulates the entire Hero Association. This is wild. And he like sends it to another dimension or wherever he sends it for like a moment just to avoid Empty Void's attack, which is called Dimension Blade, is so big and powerful that it's like taking up miles seemingly in multiple directions and could have maybe one-shotted the entire Hero Association. I mean, it probably would have, since Blast needed to do something this drastic to stop it. So this goes back to what we were talking about. Empty Void might very well be disaster level God at this point. If this is just his welcoming attack here, just sending a message, then Blast brings the Hero Association back and explains what had just happened with Empty Void recovering and him launching his Dimension Blade, and how this was just a greeting to them. And Saitama's like, you think you can win? And then Blast is like, well, I'll figure it out. I haven't just been playing around either. And then in the final panel, Saitama's looking off to the distance with Minako, and he's like, that looks like Tatsumaki. So that's really interesting, because if it is Tatsumaki coming, then she might possibly reunite with Blast here, who seemingly she hasn't seen in a very long time. I mean, she did technically see Blast when he saved her from God's influence back in the Monster Association arc, but as far as we know, she hasn't had like a face-to-face with Blast in a very long time. So at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Blast kind of just like dips out before Tatsumaki gets there. Or I'm just jumping the gun here and Saitama is kind of just making an observational joke on the cuts in the ground, you know, leading towards the Hero Association, because they kind of look like Tatsumaki's skirt dress thing, possibly. Not really sure. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. And if you like the video, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.